Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap Polaris 35, Polaris versus Who's Number One, the first event of Polaris on Flow Grappling. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Maggie.
How you doing, Maggie? Talk right into that mic.
Okay, gotta make sure I'm close enough.
Yep. Make sure you're close enough to the mic. Every single person on Grappling Rewind is sick. So about an hour and a half ago, I reached out. I was like, hey, Maggie, we had some folks over. We had the whole team. After your promotion to Purple, we had a bunch of folks over at the house to watch Polaris because it's midday. It lined up perfectly. And now every single person on the team is sick. So I was like, hey, Maggie, you came over and watched Polaris with us. And you're like, yeah. I was like, you want to do the podcast this week? And you're like, I am not sick.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I will come and do the show. So you're actually bringing an interesting perspective. So typically most of the people on the show, or pretty much everyone on the team, watches every single event and is super, super entrenched to all of this. You bring an interesting perspective because you went out with us to CJI too. You watch the big events.
Yeah.
But you don't, right in there, you need to react.
Okay.
You watch the big events, but don't necessarily follow the sport as super closely. So we were doing some pre-show and you were talking about hey, okay, so I watched it, but give me the lowdown on exactly what I'm seeing, how the points work, because it was funny to kind of have you watch it and during the pre-show give me some insight into that's not necessarily super clear on the broadcast if you're just watching matches as a fan. And so I kind of want to get your perspective today on the event that you watch, because again, you come over occasionally, we watch events with the team. You flew out to Vegas with us again for CJI too. You like this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But your perspective I think would be really interesting because we and everyone on the Grappling Rewind is so entrenched in just the day-to-day, the week-to-week, every trials, every event, sort of following the landscape. I want to see you as a person that just watched a couple events. What did you think of this event? Where did you think it was fun? Where was it confusing? Where did you think things potentially can be improved? As someone that doesn't watch every event, what was your take? So
yeah. Well, hopefully I can give you that perspective, mate.
Well, we will hope. So let's kick it off. It is a wonky week because Miranda literally texted. She's like, "Yo, man, I am super sick."
No, it's going around. Everyone's sick right now.
Man. I'm hoping Rachel was sick last week. I'm just hoping that I avoid most of it, but definitely it's not going to happen. So no previews this week. Literally only going to recap Polaris 35. I liked the broadcast quality. Seemed pretty similar for the events. I was worried that it was going to kind of take a hit moving to Flow because again the standard for them on Fight Pass is so high. They've been on Fight Pass for more than 10 years now at this point, and it was cool to see them sort of maintain a really, really high broadcast standard moving over to Flow. It's very similar in broadcast quality to the Who's Number One events, and that was really, really nice. They didn't do the thing that I hate sometimes, which is during a sub or during a transition, cutting to the crowd like we saw Europeans last week. So let's kick it off with the two title fights here. Let's start off with the middleweight title. Formerly Craig Jones's title, and then Roberto Jimenez, I think, had this title for a minute. Now being contested by Levi Jones-Leary versus Davis Asare. How did you describe this one? I was like, hey, we're going to recap this.
Yeah, I just didn't think it was that exciting. I don't know. I was hoping to see more from them. It was really technical round, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't very exciting to watch.
That was the absolute, I think, takeaway. It's just three rounds. It's Levi Jones-Leary is super good. He's the best Berimbolo player in the world by a pretty decent margin. And Davis Asare, while being very good, trials medalist, trials winner, just didn't really seem to have an answer for anything that Levi Jones-Leary was doing. The first round to the third round, realistically, we were started talking when we were watching it live of so first two rounds look almost exactly the same. It's Levi Jones-Leary playing De La Riva variation to look for the Berimbolo to the top position. If you're going to give the backup, he'll take it. Davis is good enough to not give the backup in that position. And then each time in that round, you'd either have Levi Jones-Leary sweep, but generally speaking, it was Davis Asare that was dropping back into a leg lock, and then Levi Jones-Leary was going, oh, cool, and on top and get my 2 points, and then immediately sort of address whatever leg lock position Asare was using, and then immediately into passing. And for the most part, using that same hip cup, just slide by drag pass to north-south.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems super simple, but it was really effective. So that was really cool to watch. I mean, for me, from my perspective.
Every time, and that was the first 2 rounds. And then the third round, we watched this one. Okay, cool. So Levi Jones-Leary is up. He's not really doing a whole lot as far as submission offense. And the commentary even brought up, I think in the beginning of the first round, they were like, yeah, Levi Jones-Leary is very good, but he has like a 20, I think the numbers they gave were like 23 to 25% submission rate. Might have been up to like 27, 28%, but like under 30% submission rate, which again, given the caliber of guys that Levi Jones-Leary is fighting, is a bit understandable. But it's also it is a little odd given how good Levi Jones-Leary is that his submission output is so low. And we saw that in the first 2 rounds of like he's on top, he's in north-south on Davis Asare, he's in side control, he's in mount at one point in the second round, and really sort of looking for Asare to give him the Kimura, and Asare just was like,
yeah, no, I definitely thought he could have done more to hunt for a submission in a lot of those positions. He was really dominant.
Even like self or something. It was interesting because he has a minute or a minute and a half in both rounds that he's on top and really just, again, phenomenal positional maintenance, and that will win you the title. But it is really interesting to have him as like, not the main event because the squads was the main event, but have him as like a really, really high level super fighting for a championship at that level of like submission. I feel like there's not one highlight that comes out of this match. The third round comes in. So we were all talking on the couch of like, okay, if you're Davis Asare, like you're down 2 rounds. What possibly could you do? And I think all of us were like, he jumps on a leg.
Yeah, it just has to get on the leg. And, he tried it over and over again, but wasn't able to get it done.
Not even that many times. Just like he tried it. And then sort of the same thing happened where Leary went, okay, cool.
He just walks out of it.
Yeah, the weird thing was in the third round that we were all going, okay, so you're down 2 rounds. Asare's like very clearly, he's still in the match. He's not like getting like demolished by Levi, but he's very clearly down 2 rounds. We were like, okay, he's got to be more aggressive. He's got to go. And we know Davis Asare has historically had some pacing problems here and there. We've seen him get caught. We saw him get caught at PGF. He got his foot broken in half there. We were wondering, like, okay, he's got to be aggressive. He's got to go for something. And then he just didn't do any of that. Like, he played more on the outside in the third round.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
By like a fair bit. And it was, we were all kind of on the couch like, we were wondering, like, is he gonna go? Is he gonna be late? And then he just didn't. And then eventually he gets the refs like, you got to engage, man. He engages, and we're back into the first 2 rounds.
The same way.
And Levi Jones-Leary back on top. And then exactly sort of the same thing we saw. And Levi Jones-Leary takes a very comfortable 2018. I think, no, the final had to be 30-27. Just a very clean 3 rounds to 0 rounds. That was it. That was the match. It was, again, not super exciting. It was interesting because like Levi Jones-Leary's got a phenomenal game, but paired with the skill set of Asare, it was almost like it was a mismatch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, curious who you possibly put up against Levi Jones-Leary that's going to be able to push him into an interesting match. Like, you need a guy like Cade Rottola, but Cade Rotola's right now in one championship. You're not going to take him over. We're never going to get that rematch out of him. Like, you've got to give him someone that's really, I think, honestly, Jimenez was the former champion. I would like to see him, if they can, I don't know why Jimenez didn't decide to defend that title, but if they can get someone that's going to push the pace like Roberto Jimenez on Levi Jones-Leary, and will take risks. He's super hard to put away, which isn't as much of a problem with Levi Jones-Leary unless he gets your back. Jimenez is one of the best double underback takers, and if not the best double underback taker in the world. He'll take risks. He's big enough now that he can make middleweight. You have to cut to make the middleweight weight, but I think, again, he pushes a pace that I would like to see against Levi Jones-Leary in these 2 kind of current forms of both guys.
Yeah, and that's more what you're looking for in a super fight format, I think. I mean, if I'm going to watch a super fight, it's because I want to see submission.
That's a really good point though, because you're like you were watching this match with not a lot of the context of like who Davis Asare is and who Levi Jones-Leary is. Like, you've watched them and you've seen them come up in like CJI events and trials, but yeah, it's interesting booking for guys that are historically not super exciting finishers, and the matchmaking, and it kind of bleeds into a lot of this card. The team selection for Team Polaris and the team selection for who's number one. It's a mix of guys that are phenomenally good, but not necessarily known for being super dynamic or super strong finishers, aside from like Owen Jones and Owen O'Flanagan.
The Owens.
They
had some good subs.
They have some good subs. So it was interesting matchmaking on the card. Let's move into the female super fight. We had Selma Vik versus Adele Fornarino. First round, very clearly Adele sort of putting up more activity and options. Sweeps, gets the top, takes the round 10-9. Second round, a little bit more of the same, but there is one sequence, really it's the finishing sequence, that I wanted to talk about because it is wild. It is Selma Vik entering into the legs, and then we see Adele Fornarino, what I thought initially was like an octopus guard roll through, and we watched it again, you're like, man, that's just like a ninja roll to the back.
Yeah, it just looked like she rolled through from quarter guard.
Yeah, just rolled through, takes the back, and then immediately punches the choke in and gets the choke. So Adele is the champion. Some look good, but just, man, Adele is one of, if not the best woman in the world. It's definitely the best one at the weight class. I can't wait to see her go up against Cravar again in ADCC 2026. That would be really cool.
Yeah, that's going to be an awesome rematch.
Yeah, we saw the CGI. Like, it'll be. I'm super jazzed to see how that one. We didn't see the CGI. Yeah, I'm super jazzed to see how that one plays out. Interestingly, so back into like moving to the piece of the show that I hate, talking about issues in the community. Adele was Atos, has been Atos for a long time, and she wears a competition rash guard, Hyperfly rash guard that has a Atos patch on the back corner of it, and if you've noticed, watch the internet. Again, we're not really the podcast for this anymore. Andre Gaval has some allegations for some unpalatable stuff that makes me super uncomfortable to talk about. And Adele Fornarino has her rash guard has been taped to cover the Atos logo, and we were trying the entire broadcast to like pause.
Yeah, when we were watching it, we were like pausing it, rewinding it, trying to zoom in.
What does it say? What does it say? And what we figured out that it said. There needs to be change, or what was the words that were written over it?
I think it was something like that.
Yeah, things need to change.
Things need to change. That's what it was.
And Adele gave a really good speech at the end of it. That was basically what a lot of is emulated in the community is like, this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. We need to stop accepting that this stuff happens and start talking about it and getting in front of it and not allowing this to happen in our communities. And it was good. And it was a very, very good points, and I appreciate that. Again, always makes me super uncomfortable to talk about any of this stuff, because again, it's not really what the show is anymore. But I think it is important to talk about it and to bring it up. Again, Adele, I don't think is impacted by this like personally, but it is the team that you repped for a lot of years, and that team has had splits and other things since Galvao have come out in this week, which is great, which is phenomenal that people being outed.
And I think she did a great job, like the way that she did it. It was, professional. Yeah. It was, short and to the point, and she had good messaging. And so, overall, I think she used her platform in a way that really aligns with like clearly her personal values and the values of the community as a whole.
Yeah, it was great. And I'm happy that someone in the status of Adele, takes a big match like this on Polaris, on who's number one now on the Flow Grappling platform, and has like the stones to say something about this and like not accept that it is just part of the community. And like one of the messaging pieces that I really appreciated that she had was like, let this be the last generation this happens.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
like, that's like I like that because it's a tangible goal and a driving point forward of like, yeah, this happens, it's happened. This will be the last generation that this happens in, and we need to work together as a community to make sure that this does not continue to happen for the generation that comes like after us.
Yeah,
and that was good. It's unfortunate. Again, it makes me kind of like creepy crawly to talk about that kind of stuff. But it is very important. So my messaging to like people listening to the show is, if you have stuff like that happening in your gym, your community that you're aware of, like out it, like make sure it doesn't happen so that we don't have to keep having this conversation twice a year or once a year on the podcast. And it would be fucking awesome to have more women in the sport than we have, because look at registrations for every major event. It's like 10%. Like, we have to do things to make women feel welcome in the sport. And every time something like this happens, it's just like they guarantee you that there are women that see this and go and will look up jiu-jitsu and go, cool, not gonna do that sport.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back every time something like this happens. And it would be awesome to have more ladies in the sport, for you and my wife, Miranda, and like all the women in the community to train with and compete against that aren't being like accosted by people in the sport.
Definitely.
So, any other points that I've missed as we move off this topic that makes me super uncomfortable?
No, I think we're good to move on to the event.
So let's move into Polaris versus Who's Number One, the squads event. If you've never watched the squads event, you've watched the squads event, but I don't think you've watched it like now with the detail that was, hey, Marie, you're coming on the podcast, Maggie, in an hour.
Yeah,
Are you good to go?
No, I haven't. So this was a new format for me, and I thought it was really interesting. Especially because of the weight difference. I think that's really a huge factor and has to be something that's considered in the strategy of who goes against who and when. One
of the things I thought was really funny that you mentioned up when we were watching it was you were like, I think it was one of the small, it was Miriam McQueen, and he was up against Declan, or one of those matches. And like you, maybe my wife even brought up, we were like, oh yeah, he's under, was it 80 kilos?
Yeah, he was under 80, I think.
Under 80 kilos, and Declan's under 95 kilos. And we all kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, Declan's barely making the under 95 kilos, and Mayrim can make like 15 or 20 kilos below his weight.
Way under.
So it is really funny because on the broadcast, you'd see like, oh, you're looking at that, and you're like, oh, 15 kilogram difference, 30 pound difference. But it's like, no.
This is like a 50 or 60 pound difference.
Under the weight. So one of the things I wish they would do is like have those guys listed for their weight class that like they represent in the team's event. Like, hey, under 95, under 80. But also give me like homeboy weighed in at 152.
Yeah, I want to know how everyone weighed in today.
Because that would be really interesting because it gives you the insight. Like, this is where your team sits. And then this is where, because when they used to do quintet, I would love to see quintet come back. It's a team format in a similar way that squads kind of comes out of the quintet team battle format. And your entire team has to hit an aggregate weight like below 750 or like some weight. Okay. And it's like, so you can have 2 guys that are 300 pounds, but you got to have 3 guys now that are like 95 to 110 pounds. And so it averages out. With this event, it's a little interesting because you don't have to hit an aggregate weight. You just have to have like, this guy can make under 95 kilos. Okay. This guy can make under 80 kilos. But again, from a viewership perspective, which you said, you're like, well, he's way smaller though. It's like, he is way smaller, but that's the slot that he fills on the team.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not immediately apparent when you're just looking at the name and the weight class on the screen.
I would love to see, like, give me an actual weight. Like, here's his slot on the team, and big homie weighed 152. Because I don't think that Mayrim, if he's 160, I would be a little surprised.
Yeah. No, he was much smaller.
His stature. So let's kick it off. So these are we're going to run through the squads event relatively quickly. I really want to touch on a lot of the submissions. Most of the decisions can come down to one moment in the match, or just generally speaking, one guy is doing more than the other guy and gets the nod. There were a couple of them that were close. But I love the term that Seth Daniels uses when he's talking about like decisions in fight to win. It's like, if they're close, you kind of should have just done more. You should have done. And maybe that's a little disrespectful to some of the guys at the highest levels for like, you're competing against the best guys again in the world. Yeah, it's a little hard to do more. But also, if you're going to complain about a close decision, like, you needed to be doing more in that match so that it wasn't a close decision and you could take that decision. And so a lot of these matches, they could go either way. They go one way or the other, and it's like there was nothing here that was egregious. There was 2 of them that were like, oh, that could have gone the other way, but I'm not upset that it went the way that it went.
Yeah,
because they were generally, some of the matches were like lower paced matches, not necessarily lower paced, but like, yep, one guy's pushing forward on top, one guy's retaining the guard, one guy's sort of looking for the legs but not having any success. The other guy is actively looking to pressure down and pass and put aggressive pressure on. We're seeing a big shift in the landscape of the sport for professional matches, is like activity and forward pressure is so much more of a criteria in judging than it has ever been before. And we sort of saw this come out of the ADCC rule set years ago, where ADCC, like, who is initiating the position and who is being the aggressor, are kind of some of the primary things that are used in scoring. It's like, hey man, the guy that's trying to win the match is the guy we're going to give the match to.
Yeah.
Hey, if you sweep or you turn, like, yep, that's important. Those are criteria as well. You're the positionally dominant guy. That's great. But if you are simply lying on top of the guy being on top, like, that is no longer the criteria that we are looking to win the match. I need you doing something. And I think more and more professional rule sets, we're starting to see that sort of criteria be used, even like a little unofficially. And I kind of like it because generally what it's doing is it's pushing guys into more exciting matches.
Yeah.
Those glacial 15, 30-minute super fights that are just like, oh, not a whole lot happened here.
Yeah, well, that's what I like about it. Like when, as somebody who doesn't watch this all the time, when I do watch it, I want to see like action.
Yeah.
I don't want to see two guys just in the guard the full 5 minutes. And I know that's what a lot of this ends up being because these guys are at such a high level and they are just so good. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make for interesting television.
Yeah. One of the things I like about Polaris is they do this, the squads event, you have, again, 6 guys on each team, 3 over 95, 3 under 80. And then I like that it's a 45-minute half and then a break and then a 45-minute half. Feels like a soccer match, which is, again, given that we're an event out of the UK, it makes a lot of sense that they have to emulate that formula. But I also like that the matches are 5 minutes for a couple of reasons. One, you can gun for 5 minutes pretty hard, especially as a professional in the sport. Like, you can go, like our rounds at the gym, our comp rounds are 5 minutes. Occasionally we'll bump them to 6. We rarely bump them to 10. It's like, because the majority of the room most nights isn't black belts.
Yeah.
And like even the masters guys, like rarely do we have guys that are competing in 10-minute matches. In aggregate, most of the general membership of the gym is like in 5, 6, maybe 8-minute matches. And so like, I like that shorter training round because you get more activity, you get more work, you get more cardio, you get more looks at something in a smaller, shorter training round.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot of professional events like Polaris have moved towards a 5-minute match format because it's like, man, a guy can gun for 5 minutes. And then if you have a guy that's been gunning for 5 minutes and then he gets a fresh guy in front of him, he can really put up a pace and put some effort up, and we will have extended himself for 5 minutes, and now you have a fresh guy that's ready to try to like leverage fresh cardio against their opponent for 5 minutes, and you can get some really interesting mismatches, and like fatigue starts to play a factor, but in an interesting way, whereas like, hey man, this is a 10-minute match, and I watch guys sit in the guard for 10 minutes.
Yeah, because they're not trying to pace themselves as much as they would if they had a 10-minute match.
Yeah, you can kind of go really hard and then like try to win the match that's in front of you, not necessarily like, oh, I need to win the next 3 matches. Like, no, I need to beat the guy in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Because if any guy loses, like, they're out. And so it's like one guy was willing to leverage way more of his cardio and energy to win the match in front of him. Like, generally speaking, what I like about this format is you don't see guys like, oh, so you're saving yourself for later rounds. Like, nope, every match is a full-blown, like, 5-minute sprint for these guys, if they decide to put it there, in order to win. And it's like, I like that it's a shorter round and a pacing to do that. Now, that being said, this is a little bit pie in the sky. That's not always the case with some of these matches. Running through, Flo has actually some really, really good notes on this event. There's a couple of them as we kind of run through to jog our memory that are like, the entire match is about a sentence and a half. And you're like, yep, that's, there's some...
A match happened.
Not every match is going to be super exciting, but I like and don't like, a couple of events ago, Polaris introduced decision judging for the squads events. So basically, if 2 guys have the match, historically in the team battle format, both would be eliminated. It's like, hey, there's no draw, there's no sub, you both get out. But with the squads format, because the guys will come back in, it's like eliminating a guy isn't that important. You kind of get him off the roster, but he can still come back in. He's not out, like in quintet.
Okay.
Your 5 guys, one is eliminated. He can't come back in. He is out of your team now, and so it's really strategic. With squads being a much, much longer event, and guys can cycle in, having both guys draw and like both guys kick back out to the team squad and then come back in later doesn't have the same weight. So they introduce decisions, essentially, which makes it where you can't just stall the guy out because you'll lose that match.
Okay,
and
that
so
makes sense.
I like, and we've seen it have problems. I do like that in this event and previous squads event where we've seen it work well. It makes every match like there is a level of activity that is required in every match. You can't just like not get subbed and have that be a win.
Yeah.
Which in quintet, I think is part of the fun of it. But in squads, again, a slightly different format, that decision for like, hey, the guy did more, he put up more pace, and he just wins because not a whole lot happened in the match, and he was trying to push out. Like Devontae is famous for this in some of his matches where he's like, he's just in front of you, he's just putting up like enough on you and stifling enough of what you're doing to win a match.
Yeah, just timing you out.
And so it's like both guys, instead of both guys being eliminated and that being a waste of a match where it's like that match didn't matter at all, that match now has some weight to it where it's like each match does matter. It may only be a 1-point swing either way, but each match does have some weight. So with that context in here, let's move into the recap. First match, we had big guy versus little guy. Declan Moody on team who's number one. Let me go through the teams real quick. If I actually have a team breakdown right here. I think I do. Let me see if I have it. I did write it down. Here we go. So, the Team Polaris roster. Centilio Elias, Owen O'Flanagan, Lucas Kennard, Taylor Perman, Owen Jones, Mary McQueen. Which was very funny because it's like Team Polaris, European Vanguard. It's a bunch of guys from Europe and then Mary McQueen.
Yeah, just Brazil at the end.
Who just had a match with Owen Jones. He beat Owen Jones, and so it was funny to have both those guys on the same team because I went out to Chattanooga and then Atlanta and got a chance to train with Owen like right prior to this match. He had just come back from the last squads event like the day before, and then this match got announced and it was in the gi, and I was like, I didn't tell him that. I was like, that's a tough matchup to take, man. Miriam is a monster in the gi. He composed himself very, very well, but it was cool to see those guys back on the same team again after after their match. On team who's number one, we had Declan Moody, we had Lucas Lira, we had Devontae Bones Johnson, we had Chris Wojcik, Gavin Corbray, and his brother DeAndre Corbray. So those are the two teams. So kicking off the event, we started with Declan Moody versus Mary McQueen, and I went, why do they always do this? They always put big guy, like biggest guy in the tournament versus littlest guy in the tournament.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that either. Like first match out.
It's like, one of the things I love ADCC does is the first round of Absolute, it is always the biggest guy in Absolute versus the 166 kilo guy that made it in. And you're like, that's rude, ADCC.
That is rude.
Is like top seed versus bottom seed. And I'm like, I understand why you do it, but do you gotta give Keith Kokoria and Bushesha? Do you gotta give Fabrizio Andre Victor Hugo? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, it's just silly.
It is silly, but I kind of
it's fun, and it can give you some good different looks.
It can, and then it can have the big guy. It has Goliath killing not Goliath every time. So that was the first match. Declan Moody takes I'm missing my notes here. Declan Moody takes this on positional work and points because he's an enormous man, and you just can't let Miriam get going. And he does that. Next one, we have Declan staying in. We have Taylor Perman, a man whose last name, for the life of me, I want to call him Perlman. I've wanted to call him Taylor Perlman, like the actor, every time. And every time I see his name, I think of Austin looking me like dead in the eyes in the Airbnb in Las Vegas going, it's not Perlman, it's Pearman.
You can do it.
You keep calling him. Dude, that was a year ago. And I still, I see his name spelled out and I want to call him Perlman. So Taylor Pearman. Taylor puts up more. I liked some of the pacing. Like, Taylor's a guy, when you see him in his trials runs, he puts a pretty good pace up. Like, he has... with all his heel hook wins at trials, like, he's not a guy that tends to sit in front of you in the guard, like, waiting for you to try to pass. He is consistent, like, arm drag you in and pulling in. And one of the things that I liked in this match, also with every squads event and quintet style event, sometimes there are rematches. For the life of me, I cannot get those correct. For was it this match or was it the other rematch they had? So apologies in advance if I have talked about a match and it's actually like the first time they met or the second time they met in the event, it all gets very mushed together. And this is usually where Miranda keeps me straight on these things. But she's sick right now, and I've thrown Maggie to the wolves with an hour notice. So
I didn't have time to make notes.
It's on me. Taylor keeps a really active guard. He 1 point throws for almost like a triangle armbar on Declan, and I was like, he's not going to get that. And Declan really has to address it for a second. But it's those kind of offensive tendencies that get him and let him be able to take the win over Declan. So now we have Team Polaris 1, Team Who's Number 1, as DeAndre comes in for Team Who's Number 1, which is very funny because these two guys were teammates on the Misfits team for CJI too.
I remember that.
The Who's Number 1 team was like essentially half of that team again. It was just missing the TLI guy. Blanking on his name. It was missing Pat Downey. It was missing Elijah Dorsey. And then it was the Corbett brothers and then Taylor Perriman. And you're like, this Who's Number 1 is essentially that team again, which is kind of cool. But Taylor is now on Team Polaris, which, by the way, Big Homie is undefeated as the team captain on Team Polaris. He's won 4 squads events he's been in. Spoiler here, if you didn't watch the event, Team Polaris takes this. And it was a cool stat to see of like, oh, Taylor's like really good. And on the commentary, they were talking about why he was selected as team captain. And basically all the Polaris guys are like, yeah, man, he's the one who like talk on a mic because you have to interview at the end and at the middle of everything.
So that's why he's the captain.
He's the captain because he's like the only one that can like give a competent interview during an interview. And so it's very funny. That's why they put him. That's at least the reasoning that they gave. In reality, they did.
He's their PR guy,
essentially. But they talked about in the event of a tie, which we almost saw. It's the two team captains that go out at the end. So he really is your linchpin guy. But again, you've done 3 squads event. This is your 4th squads event. You're undefeated. Also, you have a history of just like aggressive attacking and like doing what you need to win in the squads events. He's not a bad pick. It's really like him and Owen O'Flanagan. There's 2 Owens on the Polaris. Owen Jones, Owen O'Flanagan. Tim and Owen, and they're picked as the MVP at the end, which is cool and makes sense given the results we're going to talk about. But it was just an interesting wrinkle to have DeAndre and Taylor previously being on teams, now being on separate teams going against each other, and DeAndre is able to take that one. Next, we had DeAndre versus Lucas Kennard. It's the small guy at 66 kilos versus the plus 95. And man, Kennard he's a big dude. He puts up enough activity. And he just, he's sort of just in your face enough and active enough. And he's slowing DeAndre down enough to just get the win. Next one, we have Gavin Crowbury, his brother, versus Lucas Kennard. Again, Gavin's trying to sort of engage into the legs here. And this is a closer match. This is one of the matches where I was like, I could go either way. I think I would have still given it to Kennard here. I think it was a fine result. But it was like I was impressed with the level of pacing. But again, Kennard's already had a match with his brother.
He was already tired.
Yeah. That's one of the things that whenever we recap these events, I always miss as like a talking point that like, oh yeah, he's already had a match. He's already had a match. Because we do so few events where you have literally like back to back to back where it's like there's a 30-second break between the next match and you're taking on a fresh guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a unique...
It's rough.
Yeah.
Like I did that at my last tournament and it was harder than I thought it would be to go no rest back to back to back and then get a fresh person at the end.
I have never done a quintet style tournament. I can't imagine like regular tournaments, but usually you're always given either the length of the match, unless you sub the guy fast, like you're usually given a 5 or 6 minute like buffer time before you're into your next match. And so my wife did one, you've done one where it's like, boom, fresh person. The level of fatigue, I bet is really, really interesting because like you're running into a fresh person after you've had a full-on, like full-time like match. In these matches, if you go to decision, like a full time length match, and then 30 seconds later, you're in front of a fresh guy. So it's the fatigue thing is always something I forget to account for. And I get DMs about it when we do it on the show. I'm like, yeah, man, it was his 4th match. You forgot that. I went, oh, that makes sense. Also, when we talk about these in like 6 months or like 2 years about, oh, they went against each other at squads and he beat him. You're like, right, that was his 4th match though. That makes, and it's like, it colors the results way more significantly than I would think. Yeah. And I always forget because very few events operate like this. I always forget to include like, oh, right, they had 4 matches ahead of that. And then he was fresh when he beats him. And so it's like these tournament results are always much more interesting to look at in the context of like wins and losses because, and the commentary brought it up, everyone loses in this format. Mm-hmm. Like no one's going to like start and then beat the entire team again like for the entire 90 minutes. Like that's just not
just not realistic.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't. I think we had some amazing performances. Like Margaret Ciccarelli had an amazing performance. Helena Cravar had a good performance. Like that'll take out 4 or 5, but like you're just not gonna do any more than that, because even if you're submitting a couple of people, you're still 20 minutes on the mat, and then you run into a fresh person with 30 seconds rest. Like, you know, you just ran a gauntlet for your promotion Saturday. Like, by the 10th or 20th person, the level of fatigue that you have, and then a fresh person is on you, is like very, very different. Like, it's not the same. It's not an even match anymore very quickly.
And I think it says something that Kennard was able to pull out the win against Gavin, even though he was pushing the pace, and even though it was his second match.
Yeah. Being a plus 95er does help.
It does have its advantages.
But also the plus 95ers get way more tired.
They get way more winded.
Which is kind of cool. Next one we had Lucas Lira beating Lucas Kennard. Again, it seemed like Kennard was a little tired, and Lira just does enough. Like, he just puts enough top pressure, stacks Kennard enough that it goes to Lucas. And I was like, yep, that's reasonable. And that's sort of what you see in these, is like, it goes back to like team selection, where you're looking at, okay, Kennard's here, he's big, but he's tired. Who is going to have enough size parity with him and be able to like force him and slow him down to just like make him lose a decision?
Yeah.
And so it's where the team captaining and like the team coaching come into play, of like, who should we put here? And commentary, I think, did a really good job with Josh Palmer on commentary, one of my favorite commentators. Did a really good job of explaining, and even like when they thought the team potentially made a misstep, for like, it's odd they put him here. Maybe, you should have put someone else. One of the things I like about British commentary versus American commentary is they'll be a little more, not brash is the term, but like realistic.
Yeah.
Like they will call into question sometimes the like what a coach has done, or like what you're seeing from a fighter. Whereas a lot of times American commentary is very, like, even when I do commentary, very complimentary. Like, yep, and I kind of find reasons why the decision that a team or a coach or an athlete did was like the right thing that they should be doing. Whereas European commentary a lot of times will be a little more like, I don't know why I did that. That's probably not the right thing to do here.
A little more realist.
But it's cool. I do like the balance of it, because it is a little more realistic. And there was, I forget, one of the matches they brought it up, and I was like, that is actually a really good point of like, that might have been a misstep for who they picked here. Lucas Lira was obviously the right decision to take out Kennard. Lucas Lira also then goes against Owen O'Flanagan. So the teams are tied 3-3. Who's number 1 in Polaris? And Owen O'Flanagan, leg lock specialist, man. He is just gunning for you. This had the funniest moment of the entire tournament for me. It's off the jump. Lucas Lira is a little tired because he just had a match, and Owen O'Flanagan comes out aggressive.
He's just ready to go.
He's just ready to go immediately, and he tries to like arm drag Lucas Lira, and kind of like, if you know Owen, what he'll do is he'll arm drag, and then he'll like jump on your back. And he's long and he's lanky, so it's not like a super common thing to see guys of his size do. And he gets a lot more guys than you would expect him to get. And he does this to Lucas Lira, and Lucas Lira is pretty quick for the size, recognizes that it's coming, and he goes, nope, and tries to cut the corner.
Yeah.
And these guys do, I think, like 6 revolutions.
They were spinning. And he just eats it at the end, right in the face.
Lucas Lira just falls, like, he tries to counter drag and tries to like drag and fall as he's dragging, and Owen is still trying to jump his back, and Lucas Lira just dives his face. And we looked, I was like, oh, and we replayed it a lot, because it was a moment. He composed himself, and he's fine. Luckily he's fine. But it was wild to see both guys like so aggressively trying to spin. It's like not something you see very often unless you see like a pro tournament.
Yeah.
See that level of like intensity to defend something, and having the wherewithal to actually essentially defend it. Owen locks up a really interesting, it was kind of like an arm-in triangle from the guard that we were like, I don't think that's in, but he is really squeezing on Lira's face here to get it. Doesn't get it. Eventually, Owen techs back down. He falls to like a modified reap when Lucas Lira is trying to kind of high step out or sort of like push out of it. And then looks like he hurts Lucas Lira's knee for like an inside ligament, because he hits an inside-outside heel hook. as Lucas Leary is trying to escape, and then you see Leary's knee kind of
like
buckle down, not buckle, but like it was
kind of turned an odd angle.
And then you see Lucas Leary go, my leg. And Owen O'Flanagan. They're spelled wildly differently too, which is like not. He's the Welsh spelling, I think, I forget which spelling. Welsh, I think. It's the EOHAN spelling. So Owen now puts Team Polaris up 5 points to 3, because with a submission of a guy your same weight class, it's 2 points.
Okay.
Which I like. If you submit a guy as the smaller guy in the weight class, it's 3 points, and a decision is worth 1. I like it because it makes it pretty simple to just like 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. But now, what was an even match going in, Team Polaris is up by 2 points. Next one, we have really just Devontae doing what Devontae does in a lot of the matches of like, you bring Devontae out if you want Devontae to just like kind of fix a problem. Devontae's big, he's imposing. We get on him a lot about being low output. But he's really good and really hard to beat, and he will, in most of his matches, to his credit, do enough. And he just consistently, throughout this pretty much this entire tournament, he just does enough in a lot of these matches where it's like he's wrestling, he's putting up, he's pushing you out, he's stifling a lot of like what you want to do, because what you do not want is you do not want Devontae like sprawling on you and then getting on your back.
Yeah. And
so a lot of guys are just really, really hesitant to, from the feet, like engage with Devontae, and then you don't really want to play a close range guard against Devontae, and so it forces people into these weird ranges that they don't really want to fight, and their output just drops super low because they don't want to have that fight. And then Devontae is in the ranges that he wants to fight you in, and he can put up not a huge amount of output, but just enough output that it's like he's going to win the decision.
It sounds like he was the right guy to put with Owen here.
Yeah. And you guys, he beats Owen, and then he moves on to Santiri. And again, basically this exact match of like he just forces Santiri into that like mid range where he doesn't do like a whole lot, but he just like he keeps enough pressure. There is one anaconda here in the match. I think that's all the notes have for the play-by-play. I don't remember anything else. I remember this match being mainly that one like kind of headlock position.
Yeah.
And then like Devontae just consistently shooting enough and like getting in and like just moving Santiri back enough to basically pretty clearly be able to take that decision. But next we have Owen Jones coming in versus Devontae, which I was like, that's a really interesting pick for Team Polaris to make. Like Devontae, big, strong. Is he already beaten Mayrum, or now is that later?
I think. Was that the first match?
No, it's later.
No, it's later.
It's later
okay.
here, yeah. So he hadn't beat Mayrum yet. And I was like, you're putting one of your smaller guys, not your smallest guy, but you're probably your second smallest guy in Owen Jones versus Devontae, but also Owen Jones, fastest sub of ADCC 2024. Like, he's a sub hunter. He wants to put you away. But I was like, you're probably not gonna put away Devontae. You know, he can, but like this is probably gonna be a match that maybe Devontae's tired. Owen can push a pace enough on Devontae to maybe take a decision here. And I was wrong. I was super wrong.
He hit that heel hook.
He hit the heel hook. He takes his back twice. He goes to mount. Like, Devontae, again, obviously, you've had a full-length match versus Owen O'Flanagan, who's at your weight class. A full-length match versus Santiri, who's also at your weight class. You've had two 95ers back-to-back, and then you get Owen Jones fresh and ready to fucking push a pace on you. It makes sense. It also, like, what I talked about earlier of, like, forgetting the context of these. Like, man, Owen Jones is really just putting it to Devontae. It's like, yeah, man, Devontae's had 10 minutes straight versus fresh guys, and now Owen's coming in. It makes sense that he would be able to like use the pace that he keeps as a really, really good tactical weapon to just keep Devontae on the back foot. I thought he was going to get, I was like, he's not going to rear naked choke Devontae. He's on his back twice. I was like, he is not going to get the rear naked choke on Devontae. And then he drops down, gets the heel hook win. He double troubles him, which I thought was really cool. I went, like, Devontae's not a bad leg locker by any means. We don't see him pushed there very often because he's very good at not having guys force him there. Mm-hmm. But I think and think about it, he was probably tired enough where he doesn't have that explosive like push to get out or tech out or pull out of anything. And then Owen was able to just capitalize on that, lace both legs through, and then just pop, get the heel hook. And you saw Devontae, like, it's not a heel hook you can fight very hard because both your legs are trapped across the body.
There's not really much you can do from that position. I mean, once the legs are crossed.
Yeah,
and it's just so painful for your legs to be like digging into each other that way.
It is not great. So Owen, now as the smaller guy, taking out the under 95 kilo guy, 3 points. So what then Devontae had brought back to an even match with who's number one at 5 points and Polaris at 5 points is now Polaris ending the half.
From a points perspective, this is like getting pretty interesting, right? Like we've seen it go Polaris, went back to who's number one. Now we're back Polaris. So it's.
That's what I liked. As we were watching it, I was like, oh, this is like close. Because even if you have a team pull away, the other team can field a guy like Devontae where it's like, hey, man, you're not going to necessarily put these guys away, but you're going to be just enough of a roadblock to get a point here.
Yeah.
And then you have Owen who takes 3 points for you, and you're like, okay, so it's a net 1. But it now keeps that entire margin for the event to 1 point with all of those matches. Well, it's kind of cool. Like the evening out, each team has the ability to field a guy that's going to be able to play into that slot. And like it allows for interesting narratives and point swings for the entire event, which is, again, one of the few events we get the team together for is like these Polaris events because the narratives are really interesting and all of the matches have some interesting context. So we're very low in the round. We're almost at 45 minutes for the half. Chris Wodrick comes out for team moves number one versus Owen Jones. It
just went to a draw. I think because there was only 1 minute, they didn't even make a decision.
Yeah. So if there's under, I always forget this rule because last time commentary brought it up, they got the rule. They didn't know the rule either, and they thought they knew the rule, and then something different happened. They went, apparently that's not the rule. If there's under a certain amount of time, they just don't score anything.
Yeah.
So it's like if you have a 30-second match, because the halves run for 45 minutes. If you have no subs, you have full-length matches. As soon as you have subs, well, then that match only took 2.5 minutes. So you have essentially a 2.5-minute buffer, and then another sub happens in 30 seconds. Well, now you have 3 minutes extra. So the last match is 3 minutes. So that's how it works. So if there's under, I think it's a halfway point or 2 minutes. I forget. It's 2.5 or 2 minutes. I don't know which one it was. You don't score it. So this ends in non-scoring. As a result, we have team who's number one at 5, team Polaris at 8 going into the half. We have the super fights, which is, again, I love it. It's a great breakup. And then it puts the squads event back on. Because it's a new half, both teams have their timeouts again, which the timeouts, we haven't talked about it. It's when guys get real tired and we need those guys in, they pull a timeout. It's a great thing. You get one of them per half. It's a 90-second break, which is not much more than 30 seconds, but it essentially gives a guy 2 minutes essentially, which is good. And the teams use them, I think, very, very well. We've seen in previous Polarises where they've been used, like maybe not so great, but this, I think.
So do they use that in the middle of the round?
They use it at the end of
or
like so your guy wins, and then you'll use a timeout, and that guy will get 2 minutes essentially.
Okay, instead of going right into the next
Correct.
one.
Okay. Yeah. So basically gives you a minute and a half extra time for your guy to like have his arm shaken out, get him water, like get him to sitting down for a second to give him a fighting chance at the next match. Usually you're not going to push more than 2 more matches. After your team uses a timeout, you're not going to push much more. I think you can also potentially in a timeout, you used to be able to swap, I think. I don't think you can swap people anymore. I don't remember. They've changed the rules enough where it is very hard for me to keep them all straight. We didn't see anyone get swapped out at timeouts, I think. So I don't believe that you can do that anymore, or it like changes the order in a weird way that they don't want to do. I don't remember. You didn't pick it up. I didn't pick it up.
No, I didn't notice anybody swapping out.
And here we are. So we start off with Declan Moody versus Taylor Perriman. Again, the notes here are great. This rematch from the beginning of the tournament. Declan passes. Declan picks up the win here, whereas Taylor picked up the win in the first half. So now we have team who's number one up 6-8 on Polaris, down 6 points to Polaris' 8 points. Next, we have Declan Moody versus Owen Jones. Again, Owen Jones getting 3 points for his team. So a good portion of the points that Team Polaris has are from that Owen Jones sub over Devontae Johnson. You put your big guys, like, can Owen do it again?
Yeah.
Newsflash, he cannot. Declan Moody, real big guy, and definitely decides to not.
He was like, no way, you're not doing it.
No. I was impressed with Owen Jones. Yeah, Owen Jones. Leg locks, man. They are really, really good. And we know they're really good. But it is interesting to see him in these absolutes, essentially what is an absolute, have the level of like success and be able to deal with the big guys as well as he does. He's not a guy that I remember seeing in a lot of absolutes, but again, he's not been a black belt. Is he actually? I think he's not a black belt still. I think he's a brown belt still technically. So maybe that's why we don't do a lot of coverage of his other events, that he's not black belt yet.
I thought he was like really smooth, really fast. Everything was super tight.
He plays really, really tight chest and knees guard, and he's really not really flexible. He has good hip dexterity. When I trained with him, I was impressed at like some of the things he was showing. He's like, oh yeah, just how he moves his hips to get into things that he wants. He's very comfortable playing high off his back, off his shoulders, and like it was just really interesting to see a guy at his size, like really someone of my size, have like the level of, you have to at that size, but dexterity and like comfort in a lot of those transitions with using that dexterity as like a tool. And I think a lot of the big guys aren't used to necessarily seeing a guy at that size have that.
Yeah.
And it was just a very interesting interplay. Declan does take that over him. So we move on to Declan Moody versus Owen O'Flanagan. And this was another Owen O'Flanagan heel hook win. You brought up something interesting because we rewatched this before on the pre-show. And I was like, oh, he just kind of like texts down and grabs the heel hook. And you brought up something interesting with the way that Declan put his feet into Owen's like shoulder.
Yeah, Declan kind of just puts his foot right into the armpit, like he's using it to push away. And then Owen looks down, and you can see him. He's like, oh, there's a heel here. And he just kind of grabs it.
It was real funny. He does. He just sort of looks down at it and goes, I can work with this.
Yeah.
And then he comes down. I'm curious. I watched it a couple of times. If it was a position that Owen decides to like pull his arm down to trap the feet, or if Declan decides to put his feet under the arm and push away and doesn't make as big of a push as he needed. Like I couldn't quite figure out exactly what it was. Regardless, the result is the same. Owen goes, oh, that's convenient. And then immediately drops down. He threads his legs through, hits I think this was an outside heel hook on Declan Moody pretty quick. So again, Owen once again coming in clutch with the leg locks, brings Team Polaris up to 10 points versus 7. And then we get an interesting matchup. We get Chris Wojcik, known for the Woj lock, a sock lock, like a bunch of really interesting leg locks, versus Owen O'Flanagan, a little bit older, known for really, really good leg locks. And then in this one, we have Chris Wojcik taking this one. And it was funny. These guys didn't really pull it into like a leg gunfight for most of the match.
I was just going to say that I really, like, looking at the recap, I would expect this to be some kind of a leg lock shootout, but that's not what happened.
Like a proverbial dick waving contest of like who's got the better leg locks. But it was really just like Chris Wojcik knowing Owens had the match. I can now just like put top pressure is he in guard here? This is the point of the show in the recap where I'm like, did he fought him? And there's like, it's like 6 matches versus all the guys. All the guys have so many matches. I forget exactly. I remember not having a problem with this decision, but the particularity, like the nuances of the match, I don't exactly remember. Mount here. Yeah. Again, Chris Wojcik takes this one. Next, we have Chris Wojcik versus Mary McQueen. I was real curious about this one because I was like, okay, Mayrum, by the way, it seems like collectively we cannot agree on the pronunciation of this guy's name.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
Mayrum McQueen is how I know it to be pronounced.
So I was going to say, that's a really interesting way to spell McQueen.
He's Portuguese, Brazilian. I've also heard him called Mayhem. Or like if you make the Y and the A like pronounced differently, Mayhem. I know him as Mayrum. I think commentary pronounced his name even more differently than I do, but for consistency's sake, I'm going to call him Mayrum. I was curious because historically, young Brazilian guys you attack their feet and you can get the win. And Chris Wojcik goes, history. I'm gonna go after his feet. It doesn't work super well. Mayweather's able to stay safe, able to basically work his passing, and then get the nod for basically just activity. Like you have a smaller guy. If the leg blocks aren't where you can't slow Mayweather down, I think it was a very reasonable decision. Could have, and then Mayweather moves on. Mayweather takes on Devontae Johnson, and I was like, okay, so Devontae's lost earlier to Owen Jones. One of two things are going to happen in this match. One, for some reason, like the small guy's got Devontae's number today, or Devontae is going to go, no, not having this happen again. It was the latter. Devontae comes out aggressively and very quickly, like essentially from the feet.
Yeah, it just takes his back.
Jumps his back.
Yeah.
And then you get to the ground, and I went, okay, and they reset the position. There's some, as always, and that kind of as there should be, some bullshit with the restart of like, where are the hands? The hands were here. You had this grip. You didn't have this grip. Which the more grappling we watch, the more like we do this sport, the less upset I am about that, about guys like just bickering about position, because it's like it does matter. It does matter. Especially at these super high levels like this. Like it does matter. And it's like I can't fault guys too much for just like, no, his hand's here. So it's just like, when I was younger, I would get very upset about it. It's like, you're supposed to start him here. It's like, yeah, man, you're a blue belt. It doesn't, the nuanced position doesn't matter.
Yeah,
for these guys at the super high black belt level, like, yeah, man, those little grips matter a lot more. And now, like, when you're rolling for the black belts, you realize, like, oh, yeah, that hand being another inch down that collar actually is like a big difference maker now for the thing I'm trying to do. And it's like, it's been very funny to kind of come full circle on that over a decade of training. And now, like, yep, I'll watch them bullshit about the grips for as long as they need to, and eventually the referees like usually get a handle on it.
They work it out.
Most
of the time.
But it did not work out for Mayweather here because Devontae doesn't immediately go, but pretty quickly locks a body triangle because Mayweather's so much smaller and just bellies
crunches
down
him.
And just crunches over his face.
And you can see when his arm comes across, it just covers like Mayweather's entire face is covered.
It's like from bridge nose down.
Yeah,
he
looks very small.
And this is when I would love to know the weights of like, what did Devontae weigh in at? Because again, Devontae may not weigh in like close to under 95 kilos. He's probably like, I have actually no idea how big Devontae is anymore. I interviewed Devontae when he was a brown belt, like fight to win 52. It's like one of the few times I've stood next to Devontae in any time. And he's way bigger now than he was back then 8 years ago. But I know Mayweather's like close to my size. So I just would be very curious what the weight difference was. But Devontae gets back those points.
Yeah.
You only get 2 points on a sub. So it doesn't like negate all of the points. But essentially Devontae took out 2 guys earlier. Then got subbed by Owen for 3 points. So he was at a net -1. Now he's at a net +1, essentially for his team. But again, half the points have come from Devontae.
Yeah.
For this team, right? Because now you have 10 points for who's number 1. Devontae has taken out Mayram, has 2 wins earlier, and then like Devontae's putting in an enormous. I think he wins the MVP for this one. An enormous amount of work.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah. Then he moves on to Lucas Kennard. This is, again, Devontae's a little more tired. Kennard's doing more from the bottom. Devontae's trying to pass, not having success. That's the match. We move on now. Who's number 1 has 10 points, and Polaris has 12 points as who's number 1 fields Lucas Lira. Lucas Lira comes in, and then this is, again, mostly Lira doing similar things he did to the earlier round when he was brought in sort of as not the big guy killer, but hey, man, we need you to put enough pace on this guy and do enough here to just
get the win.
Just get it done and get the win. And he does. Which is, again, it's really good to have in these squads events serviceable guys like that. It's like, hey, Lira, it's like you're big enough, you're fast enough, you're dangerous enough where you're just going to be kind of a brick wall in front of a guy. We can put you in to just solve a problem.
Yeah.
1 second. Let me stall for time here. 2 seconds. We'll keep going because that's gonna bug me why that phone goes off. It's complaining about Duolingo.
Can't lose your streak, man.
Can't lose my streak. I hate Duolingo so much. But man, I'm learning Japanese slowly. So, also got to see the pajama pants I'm wearing because usually you can only see me from the chest up. So there's a view into the podcast. Next one we have Lucas Lira taking on Santeri Ilias. So now we're close on points now. Who's number one is 11. Polaris is 12 going into this matchup. This is again just like a close match with Santeri being more active. And then let's see. I think for this one, there's a couple of leg locks that Santeri just gets deeper, and he is a little more aggressive and a little deeper on them that win him this match.
Yeah.
Again, it's close. Santeri takes it.
And I remember watching this one with the team. I was thinking, like, why do they keep going out of bounds? Can you talk about that?
With the roll?
Yeah, like, is there an advantage to taking it out of bounds in this format?
There kind of is in every format, unfortunately. Like, if they're not going to DQ you for it. A lot of guys, just from a competitive perspective, it throws a lot of guys off. Or it's like, and also you can kind of bullshit in the restart. A lot of times they're not going to start you in something exactly how you were. And so.
Yeah, and here it was leg lock. So it's like, it's never going to be exactly the same and you're not going to have the same momentum.
That being said, last squad's event, we had Oliver Taza versus Owen O'Flanagan. They rolled out of bounds with Taza heel hooking Owen O'Flanagan, and they restart them dead center on the mat with no motion to roll. And O'Flanagan goes, "Yeah, you're good. I'm not gonna fight this one because I'm starting in a heel hook in the restart." So they're not gonna give it to you all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, it's one of the problems we've seen for years and years and years in big competitive formats is guys play the edge, which is one of the reasons that I appreciate that ADCC doesn't let you play the edge and will fight you on the concrete. From a safety perspective, yeah, I understand, there are issues with it and these are pro guys. But from a gamesmanship perspective, I appreciate that you can't just rely on that consistent restart because you want to push the edge and not play into something. But in this format, where you have boundaries, you have stanchions there at the side, if you want to just burn time off, you're
just go out of bounds.
You're just going to go out of bounds. You can do it. It's not necessarily a bad strategy because those resets are an extra second here. The timekeepers aren't exact. So maybe you take a second for the block. Maybe guys are a little more pensive on the edge. They're not going to aggressively shoot you off the mat. They're going to wait a second to do that. And so you can sort of just burn artificial time, 4 seconds, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And over the course of, 10 or 12 times playing the edge like that, you're very easily burning a minute of match time pretty quickly. And if you're just trying to sort of take a win or just stall a guy out to make him tired, there are tactically ways that it is unfortunately still good practice a lot of times as an athlete to play the edge, which is why rule management, good refereeing, good referee generalship of the mat is really important to keep the action fair and ongoing towards the center of the mat. You see me ref a bunch of stuff in houses and stuff. You see me constantly yelling at people, keeping it center.
I think you're one of the better people about that.
I just yell at them constantly about it. And ADCC is pretty good about that too because you won't, if you're doing an open or something like that, a lot of times the referees will, they will encourage you to push it to the center. I'm not going to move you, but a lot of times just yelling at an athlete will just sort of get them to go, and then that voice in their ear will get them to change what they're doing and to move to the center. And just you can enforce the mat a little bit more that way. So yeah, but to your question, yeah, it kind of still is really advantageous in a lot of scenarios to play the edge of the mat. And they've had to make many, many, many rules over the years that all kind of don't work. I think honestly, the iterations we have now are the best. IBJJF has a pretty decent way that they handle it most of the time. It's better than it was 10 years ago for sure. ADCC, I think they're good. They've pulled it in a little bit. They let stuff go off the mat less than they used to.
Yeah.
But I think also the level is so much higher and the level of professionalism is higher now where it's all the sport is forced to modernize a little bit and we're getting a more modern look at the sport. Next match, anything else more on that?
No.
Next match, we have DeAndre Corbury taking on Santeri. DeAndre does more, man. DeAndre, when he is on and looking to push a pace. And especially, again, Santieri is a guy that can keep a good pace, but isn't necessarily known for just a torrid, insane pace. DeAndre, again, a guy that historically competes at 66 kilos, maybe a little higher than that sometimes. He's a pace guy.
Yeah, and I mean, here he tried to hit that armbar, so I think that definitely helped him take the win on this one.
The sub attempts there, if you're looking for the offense, like in an even match, the guy that is putting up the submission offense is going to win. That's, I think, what clearly for me puts DeAndre over in this one. We now have Team Who's Number 1 versus Team Polaris. Sorry, Team Who's Number 1 at 11 points, Team Polaris at 13 points. And we're like right down to the wire here, because essentially in this match, if DeAndre were to win by sub, he could have evened this up.
Yeah.
But Santieri is incredibly hard to put away. Almost undefeated for like 280cc trials, and then only lost in the finals to Paweł Jaworski in the last trials. And Paweł is just like, Mateusz Szczecinski's prodigy, phenomenal. He's big, he's strong. Santieri is incredibly hard to deal with. So it's like DeAndre has a massive, like, to put him away would be uncommon. Like Paweł Jaworski could do it, but he's also an 88 kilogram guy. So it's like, for DeAndre to do it is a tall order. This was Team Who's Number 1 and Team Polaris. And I think the last match was only like 2 minutes or something like that. It wasn't very long.
It wasn't the full time.
Yeah. So it's like essentially DeAndre has to sub Taylor here. And then that at best will even it up. And then we'll see Taylor come back out. But Taylor knows this and comes out aggressively and just sort of puts DeAndre on the back feet, is looking for his own leg entries, looking for underneath, like just doing enough where DeAndre is consistently just having to push out and not able to get up any of his own offense. And Team Polaris takes it 14-12. Or sorry, 14-12. Overall was the final score. Overall, it was a fun event. I really enjoyed the event. So the squads format is sometimes a little bit difficult to understand, but once you sort of get into the event, you sort of figure out the landscape. I think the overlays that they have are pretty good. The points are always in the upper right corner. You can always kind of tell what's going on. Commentary does a really good job of, I think, informing me of what's going on. But Maggie, what is your take? You, as a person that doesn't watch a ton of these events, you kind of watch it with the team. We all get together, and you usually have like most of the Grappling Rewind team around you because we're all watching events together and like feeding you information. What did you think about the event? How easy is it to watch? What are you seeing as someone that doesn't watch all these events?
So I thought it was a fun event to watch for sure. I mean, like you said, they had the format of everything, how it was set up. You could watch easily from match to match and know what was going on. The commentary was great. But for me, what was missing was more of like understanding the team format. And I'm not sure if that's something that they include as part of the commentary at all. If maybe I missed it, or if it's just at the beginning because we're all talking. But like that was what I felt like I was missing to really understand what was going on from more of a strategic perspective and behind the scenes with like the team captain and who they're putting out and why.
Right. I would love always at the events, would love more graphical overlays. I would love more kind of what CGI did, what the old quintets used to do, where it's like, give me a couple, when there's a break between the match, give me like a graphical overlay of where the teams sit, what the guys are left, like some sort of like.
Yeah, I liked when they did that at CGI too. I thought that was really helpful, especially as someone who like didn't know all the teams. I didn't know the teams. I didn't know all the players. Like I know the big names, but I don't know everyone. And to see where everyone was stood at the end of each round was really helpful to like keep up with, okay, overall, here's where we are.
So, yeah, that's one of the things I think we've talked about for years and years. The jiu-jitsu needs more of it. Needs more good overlays during broadcasts. And I think, like, that's something that traditional sports does pretty well. It's like there's pretty consistent overlays of, like, what's happening in shot clocks. And, like, there's information on the screen. And that's one of the things I think jiu-jitsu could use a little more of, is a little more information on the screen to just inform people that maybe, aren't diehard fans like me all the time of exactly what's going on, so you can bring more people into the sport. But overall, it was fun. Super happy to watch it. I love that Polaris is midday and they respect my time with the pacing. So that was really good. Maggie, any kind of closing thoughts on the event, on the show? Again, I really appreciate you coming here and helping me with the show on like literally an hour note. You were on the way to the gym. I was like, hey, you want to come over? after
I went and trained right before this, and then I showered and came over. So it worked out fine. No, I thought it was a great event, and I was actually really happy that it was in the middle of the day because when you guys were like, "Do you want to come over and watch the fight?" I told Tim, I was like, "Hey, we're gonna go watch the fight," and he was like, "Oh, what time? Like later?" I was like, "No, right now." And I was like, "That's perfect because I want to go to bed at 9 p.m."
We tie purple belt on you now, and then you drive to my house and we watch.
It was
fight
perfect
here.
It was great. So I would love it if more of the events would be on in the middle of the day.
I love middle of the day events. Like one of the things that I love about like Grapple Fest and Polaris and like the UK events is that they're like midday. You can watch the undercard starting at like 11. You watch the matches, and then I still have a good portion of my Saturday to kind of do whatever, or like even watch the UFC fights. Like do something in the evening. I wish more grappling cards would have like a 10 a.m. or like a 1 p.m. start for a 2.5 hour card. I would love that. These cards that start at like 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 p.m. It's late. Like, hey man, I'm old now. I got like I want to go train tomorrow, or like I want to train today.
Yeah.
Do it after training if it's a Saturday event. Like training is done by 1 p.m. most of the time. Even if you're in like a later session of the day. Do it. Start at 1:30, and then we can, watch it. Get after training, watch as a team, get some lunch, and they're great. So that's all I got.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Well, thanks for having me. It was great to be here today.
Awesome to have you. So as always in the show, I am your host, Mange, my co-host,
Maggie,
and we are the Grappling Rewinds. And that what it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.